Hey there, and welcome to Linda's Fabric Market. We've got some fresh fabric in. Let's take a look at the catch of the day. Hey! Oh my gosh, look at these. Prime stuff right here. Hey! Keeps on coming, doesn't it? Okay. Okay, what has he done? All right. Woo! Hey! Hello. Oh, that's even prettier.
Hey!
Oh, that's gorgeous.
Look at the fishies on that. I love that fish.
Ah! No, I didn't know we sold fish. No, take that.
Well, welcome. My gosh, I think we're ready to get rocking today. We have somebody that's very unique, a real cool individual. What do you call him? A passionate quilting educator. The guy is a quilting god. I mean, that's all I can tell you. Henry, tell us who we got up.
Well, it really is a change for the kind of topics that we usually talk about here with topical news stories and life and death issues. And this, now we have something that really gives people comfort, literally gives people comfort. And that's about quilting. And I was not aware of just how popular quilts were. And I did not know how popular quilts were with you, CJ, until today.
It's part of my history, my family history. You know?
Yeah, well, it's a lot of people's history because before I tell you a little bit about the guest, about quilting now in the United States and Canada, there was a survey that was commissioned by Handy Quilter, and according to let's see, to Handy Quilter, 37,000 quilters answered the survey. I mean, that number in itself is huge. 37,000 people that willingly participated in the survey. That the Mark Hyland, the CEO of Handy Quilter, made some projections from this information and some from his marketing information for the company. There's now 85 million, quote, active creatives in the U.S. and Canada that represent more than $35 billion in sales. Now, an active creative is defined as an individual who has made a creative project in the past 12 months. And I was telling my daughter, who nobody in our house sewed, certainly not me, and her mom just for repairs and stuff. But in the previous generations, sewing was a skill that they had. But she goes, "Oh yeah, quilt talk." Like on TikTok, there's the TikTokers of quilters. Really? Quilters of TikTok, excuse me, and Quilt Talk. And who knows, maybe we'll wind up with a TikTok on there to go with our other TikToks. Yeah. But the person we have here today to help us is Corey Pearson. He's a master quilter and educator from McKinney, Texas.
Passionate quilting educator.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's pretty much his destiny, it seems like, because from the age of 6, Corey was interested in sewing and began his quilting journey with his grandmother's guidance. And by 8, he knew this was his thing, his life goal, I guess.
Yeah, there are not many 8-year-olds or little kids.
A lot of self-awareness in that 8-year-old, let me tell you. Well, he's the vice president of customer success at Linda's Electric Quilters, and they're on YouTube and TikTok, and we'll have all those links on YouTube where the video is, and on our Spotify. He aims to make the art of quilting accessible to a wider audience and encourages enthusiasts. And I'm sure if we say hello to him right now, he'll do a much better job of introducing quilting than I just did.
I think he will. Corey, how are you?
I'm good, guys. How are y'all?
Very good, thank you. You know, it sounds crazy, but it's a passion that has made a difference in the world for millions of people. I go back to the time of AIDS. I remember the quilting. Everybody was putting a quilt together for somebody they lost or some loved ones, and it was. I remember going and looking at them. It was very touching and healing and very inspirational. Quilting has I was showing my quilt here that was given to me. I'm a very political creature. Somebody did this for me, a friend, and that I still, when I win office, I'm supposed to hang it in that office. I still haven't done that yet, but my goal is at the age of 70, so we'll see we make it. But what's important is that I think quilting is been the backbone and very historical in a sense. I know my grandmother was a quilter, all her friends, you know, it was maybe something that they started because of necessity. I don't know, part art. They'd make beautiful quilts, but they'd use it in the winter. I remember all the quilts we used to have in our home came from my grandmother. I mean, tell us a little bit, what got you into this and why quilting, and I mean, what rocks your world on this? Why is quilting such a big thing?
Well, so with quilting, it started with, like I said, with my grandmother. She had sewn my entire childhood, and she
Right.
had a room dedicated in her house, any house that she lived in, because we're a military family, so she traveled a lot.
Ah,
Any house she lived in, she had a sewing room, and I would spend almost every summer with my grandma. I would make my mom take me out there so I could hang out with her in her sewing room,
awesome.
and there was just something about that comfort, like you mentioned, and that peace that that room brought me. It was a place where you could use those fabrics and those threads to block out anything bad that was happening in your life and create something completely beautiful that you could have forever. And I still have the very first quilt that I made with her. And it's just turned into a full blown career for me.
It's
My
amazing.
mom,
My grandmother had a very basic quilting, I think,
yeah,
compared to the kind of quilts I've seen you guys are creating. They're works of art. I mean, they're more than just something you put on your bed to stay warm in the winter. I mean,
right,
they were taking pieces of fabric, I think, that they could find and just putting something together. This
right.
is really artistic stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, I think definitely starting out, it was more of a sustainability thing out of necessity. We needed
Right.
something to stay warm and to have that comfort. And now it's, it's transcended into this amazing art that, you're going to a show and people have their quilts from all over the world that they've worked on to display there, and they're competing and winning prizes. And it's incredible. It's the great
But
community.
in a way, if you think about it, I've seen, my kids, they have their quilt, a thing, and they, when they go to bed, they have to hold a quilt. It's you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
It's a bigger thing that they carry with them. I even have a friend, I think he's 48. He still has his quilt that he used to use when he was a little child, and
yeah.
still gives him warmth and love. And forget about it, even the artistic and all the amazing stuff they do. The quilt is just much more than what most people would think, I think. And then it's just developed.
Definitely. It definitely becomes more of that family heirloom. It ties a lot of memories into it, a lot of love and a lot of comfort, and it's a good safe space for everyone to have. Especially, I think we all need one of those these days.
Well, I often think back to the old musicians, and I used to, and maybe because I'm getting older, I would say, they used to sing about something more than just sex, and what I like, it sounds a little corny, but I I like art. I think art changes society more than the political class does. So, a musician, an artist, a person that works on TV and movies, the expressions of what you put out, and I think that's what I get. Believe it or not, quilting is not, like you just said, just about staying warm. It's about sending messages. Do you agree with that? I mean, it can be used that way.
No, 100%. Yeah, it can definitely be used for sending messages, for creating social movements. Any type of creative art that way is an amazing, way to look at how things have changed with those arts. But quilting can definitely be one of those as well.
And I saw a video of something when they're tossing fabric at you or something. I mean, I don't know if you remember, you know what I'm talking about, the throwing, and
Yeah,
there's a fish and
yeah.
all that. Okay. That's important too. I mean, talk to me about, I don't know where I should go with this, but I was just thinking when you're creating a quilt, I mean, what kind of process is it for you now? I mean, because I'm sure, like my grandma's quilt, you're like, going, okay, I'm going to tell me from beginning to end what you do to put something together. Do you have a project
Yeah.
in
And
mind?
how did you make the transition from just being by your grandma's side into a career?
So if this they actually go hand in hand together, so this is a great topic. I started again, like I said, with by my grandma's side, and my mom got a job here at Linda's when I was very, very young.
Wow.
And I don't know if it was really legal, but that was kind of the place that I went for my daycare after work. She was a single mom. She was struggling to make ends meet. And the owner of the company said, just bring Corey up here. He's good, he's quiet, and he'll just kind of sit here in the corner. And I learned from one of the masters, like the original masters of long arm quilting, Linda V. Taylor. And she had classes every single week in her store. So I would sit right next to her and I would pick up these little things, these tidbits here and there. And it went from just sewing a quilt on, or sewing and piecing a quilt top on the sewing machine to quilting it on a long arm quilting machine. And when I say long arm, this is a 12-foot wide table, about 6 feet in depth, with a machine that runs back and forth on it to create those beautiful stitches that we see today. And so I started doing that. And then in college, my little brother said, he calls me brother. He never calls me by my name. He says, brother, I really think you should start a YouTube channel. And I said,
Right.
I don't know if I could do that. He said, just one video, just please do one video. And I've never looked back. And
Yeah,
It's just
no
gone
doubt.
from there.
Yeah, no doubt you become a star. Um, uh, Now you're mentioning about the machines that do the stitching. Do you do any of your own stitching, or is this just that today is not going to happen? Everything's technology. I mean, I imagine back in the day they were more hand-based, was it not? Or
Yeah, so back in the day, it was done. It was hand quilting, and you'll still see those today. Like there's certain categories and quilt shows for hand quilting because it is still an art, and they're trying to keep it alive. I don't have the patience for that. My hat goes off to anybody that does it because it's an amazing art. I can do, or I love to do the machine quilting, and I can do it freehand where I'm actually moving the machine and creating the
okay.
design myself. Or we have computerized machines as well that you can program it, set every little, little piece you want for it, move the stitching however you want it to go, and then it'll do it itself.
Do you consider all three? I mean, you said categories, so I mean, are they all separate and different? If there's any like competition, or I mean, how do you judge a quilt? I mean, if it's more automated versus not, how do you do that?
So I have a strong opinion on that one. In
Okay.
the quilt show world right now, currently, there is only like a hand quilting category, that's its own thing, and then there is a machine quilting category. And in that machine quilting category, it can be either free motion where you've learned all that muscle memory and all of that art to move the machine and create it, and you're competing against a computerized machine.
Well, that's not fair.
It's not. I don't think that's fair at all. I really think they should be separated because they are two completely different skill sets.
Absolutely.
They're both very strong skill sets, and that's a lot to learn on either side, but it's hard to compete against a computer at the end of the day.
So what inspires you? So you get up in the morning, does somebody come to you and say, look, I want, like a photographer, I want this kind of quilt. I need you to create this, or is this something that you create yourself? And how do you work at it in your own mind? How do you handle what you do on a daily basis?
So we actually don't quilt here for the public. It's just kind of things that I come across while I'm traveling or when I'm sitting in my backyard, kind of just looking at nature or out and about. I kind of find different colors and things, and I come here to the office and I grab all the fabrics and I throw it together, and I'm like, this is what I want to do. And it just kind of goes from there for the quilt top wise. And then for the actual quilting itself, I spend a lot of time. I have an app on my iPad called Art Studio Pro. And I spent a lot of time sketching right on top of a picture to figure out exactly how I want it to look and make sure the density of the quilting is well balanced, to make sure your eye is looking at the right place. And then on top of that, you got to pick a thread color to make sure it doesn't take away from the quilt as well. So there's really a lot that goes into it.
And the material you're using, I know I talked about they were throwing I mean, are there any rules regarding what you can use or don't use, or color choices or types, or how do you manage that?
So when it comes to blending materials in a quilt, you do want to be careful that you're kind of keeping the same fiber type with the same fiber type. Majority of quilts you're going to see are going to be done with 100% cotton fabric.
Okay.
That's almost all of them that you see. You don't really see very many polyester quilts, just because the poly fabric can stretch, it can move, it doesn't piece right all the time. So you'll normally see 100% cotton, and then there's different backings for quilts. So like the one behind me, this is just this front quilt top. This is made with strips of fabric, and then the back is just a solid piece of fabric. I think it's navy, and then you can match your backings and kind of go from there.
Henry?
CJ and I are considerably older than Corey. And one of the things that I was looking at as I was looking at TikTok and Quilt Talk and the YouTubes and things like that, and a lot of young people, at least young to me, are people starting families as opposed to your grandmother or something like that. But one thing that when CJ and I were growing up, schools had, and I don't know if they still do, a home economics class, and the boys were sent to shop class. Is home economics taught in schools anymore?
You mean quilting?
No, I wish home ec was still taught in school. I think it would be a really great thing. I think there's a lot of really necessary basic skill sets that everyone's kind of missing out on without having home ec. I think I was the only person in my class in high school, one or two of us, that knew how to sew or how to
So
quilt.
how do people that are listening now, or the people that you encounter in your work for Linda's, how do you get started? Because we sort of jumped into finished products and the more sophisticated stuff. How does somebody start?
and watch his YouTube programs.
Oh yeah, but and besides going to Linda's and not well, going online, but I mean,
Yeah, I would highly recommend one hopping over to our YouTube channel, and there's some great beginner tutorials on where you want to start with piecing a quilt. I would always like just take a deep breath when you're like, where do I want to start? Where do I want to go? I see these all amazing things. Like this quilt, for instance, behind me, it's a very, very simple quilt. It's called a jelly roll race. And these strips of fabric are already pre-cut. They're already color coordinated together in this package, and all you're doing is sewing the strips together to create the quilt top, and it goes together super duper fast. And I always tell people this is the first thing to start with, because all of the cutting of the fabric, which is the most time consuming part, is done. You're piecing it together and enjoying the process, learning how the sewing machine works, learning how the bobbin threads come up, and how that perfect quarter-inch seam comes about when piecing two pieces of fabric together. So I definitely recommend starting with pre-cut fabrics, which is what one of the jelly rolls is called.
so I guess you need a sewing machine, CJ.
Well, I mean, you need some
Yeah.
talent too, and you need some talent too. I mean, it's you can say it's easy, but I think it's a skill that everybody or a lot of people learn how to use back in the day, because I think it was necessary. But today, I would doubt, most people, would,
What is the starter budget for a sewing machine? What kind of investment do you need to get started?
You could see sewing machines for a couple $100s, and then that's kind of a starting budget, and then they range all the way up to $20,000 or $30,000.
I think it's like everything. It's a skill thing. I mean, one of these intricate stuff I can't even imagine. But have you done any? What is your choice of type of if you have something, like a photographer does nature photography, a photographer does portrait, does wedding. Everybody has their little genre. In quilting, what would you call yourself? How do you label? What kind of quilting is it? I mean, you're not like a social justice guy. I mean, what do you do?
I like modern quilts. And so what
Okay.
modern quilts are, there's going to be a lot of straight lines, geometric shapes, really stark contrast of color, clashing patterns. That's kind of where my brain likes to go. Anytime.
You got to start something of bringing a healing to this nation, of bringing us together, and maybe it's the quilt that's got to do that, because it seems like we're at each other's throats all the time. Now we forget that we're part of the same great democratic experience, and now everybody's trying to, shoot each other, kill each other, or.
Does he have some examples of what CJ's talking about? Some projects that really appeal to bringing people together and doing good?
When the projects that I'm looking at would be from that quilting angle, you'll see in the sewing angle, you'll see a lot of people come together and to forge these amazing types of kind of small micro communities when you are doing different quilting things. There's quilt guilds in many different towns where people come together once or twice a month, and they're sharing their life experiences through quilting. And it's a great way to see so many different people's experiences in one room, which is fun.
I think that's what you do is unique. The fact that this new technology has allowed you to share your passion with probably millions is got to be a big kick for you, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was.
Do you have I'm sorry, Corey, do you have an ambition that you still want to achieve, or have you sort of peaked? What's ahead for you?
No, I haven't peaked by any means. I would really, really like to have my own quilting conference. So, like, there's major shows across the world. One of the largest ones is in Houston, the Houston International Quilt Show. And I would really like to one day have my own quilting show that's this massive conference where everyone can come together, no judgment. This is the best place to be. This is where everyone wants to go every single year. And you can start from a very beginner. I have no idea what I'm doing, and there's going to be courses for you to very advanced, where you're really there to hone in on your skill set. So
I love our country. I mean, in this country, I mean, you can take this and create this huge conference and great people together and make money too. I mean, I think it's brilliant. Yeah, no, awesome. Please, I want to make sure that I get to come and visit the conference whenever it happens. But I am so happy with my quilt. I can't tell you, when I received it as a gift, it meant a lot to me. And because so much of us do hard work in the community, and sometimes we don't get recognized, and especially if you're doing the donkey work in areas that you can't succeed. But at least somebody cared enough and it meant a lot to me. They made this quilt, and I think there's probably nothing better of a gift of something that is designed based on your experiences and shows your love and respect than giving it in a quilt. I mean, I don't care what anybody has. I have a quilt, and I can hang this. I can do what I want. People, I mean, this means a lot. I think it's a beautiful thing that you're involved in. And the more you get people to appreciate it, I think the better the world would be. I'd like to see you not only as a modernist, but maybe you're the next Gandhi of quilting. Who knows what you'll end up doing, bringing people together.
I
All right.
appreciate that.
Listen, it's been great having you on the show. Is there anything else you want to say and how we can find you, how we can follow you? I want to know how we can watch you do your thing. Because in the clips I've seen, throwing the material, you're having a great time. You're enjoying what you do, and you're so full of energy and life, and it's a lot of fun to watch.
Well, yeah, I want to thank you for having me first. But yeah, for following wise, our business name is Linda's Electric Quilters on the majority of our socials. But we're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, we're on TikTok, Instagram, Pinterest, X, all over the place. You can definitely find us. And again, social media has been an amazing way to get our name out there. So it's been awesome.
Thank you, Corey Pearson, the passionate quilting educator. I love that. I like that, man. You're cool. All right, Corey. Thank you very much. Thank you.